Good morning, champion. It is April 1st. How are you today? I am excited for us to have our Monday morning motivation. If you don't know me, I'm Coach Tina, and I am the founder of the Empowering Champions community. I am an ULA certified life coach and someone just like you. And I am so excited to be sharing with you information that just I hope will give you a better month, a better week, a better day. And so we're going to get started with a topic that I call You Are Number One. That's what we're going to be covering today. But first, if you're joining us, go ahead and put hashtag live or hashtag replay into the feed. And I'm going to make sure that we pin that to the top. So I'm going to find us first. Let's see. Oh, there I am. And then I threw it away. There we go. Okay, got to go into the post and into the group itself, and then it will allow me to pin it. So thank you for a little bit of admin there. I'm so happy to have you guys this morning, and we're going to get started on this topic because I do think it's very important that we talk about the number one because it's the first Monday of the month. And it is the first day of the month. And this doesn't happen very often throughout the year. Many of you know I have a cycle that I run us on. And when we do the Monday mornings, I will kind of be like, okay, here's where the first week of the month is going to happen this week or whatever. But it's rare that we get a first on the Monday. And so I'm excited for us to have this entire month, many weeks, 4 weeks at least, of content that we can go through. And we always start the month out with a masterclass. We will have one starting Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday, we will have the 3-day masterclass, followed by the weekend workshop. So if you're in the class and you're getting lots of good stuff out of it, then on the weekend, we go into a Zoom together and we really talk about the the topic that was covered and what we're doing to dig deeper to get our own questions answered. I work with each person individually and just kind of assess an area that's holding you back. So really looking forward to that. Good morning, Margaret. So happy to have you here. All right. So, as I mentioned, we are going to be covering this topic of number one. And it made me think of when I said this, those big foam hands they used to have that had the number one sign that they would hold up at sporting events and so on. So, we have this culture where you're number one is a thing we say, but I have a question for you. What do you currently do in your life that's proof that you are living like you are number one? And I know that this is a topic where you're kind of like, well, I'm not number one. If you're hearing that, we need to have a discussion. And the reason why is um, being number one is an interesting thing, right? Very interesting thing. And hold on, I'm going to check. Seneca, you've joined us. Thank you for being here. Happy to have you. All right. So go ahead and put in the comments what you currently do that's proof that you're living like you're number one. And the funny thing is being number one is not an April Fool's joke, right? It's truly a mindset, a mindset shift maybe that you need to make to understand how important you are, how valuable you are in this world. In my community, we talk a lot about greatness. And I believe that you were designed by God for greatness and a purpose. And with that mindset, you have to be understanding, you have to believe in it yourself. And so when we look at whether or not you believe that you're number one, I can attest to the fact that however old you are right now, plus about 9 months, you want to race to get to be you. And that means you are automatically number one. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There was a whole lot of sperm racing towards an egg. You got created. you were the winner of that race. And you didn't have to do anything but win the race on that particular thing. And you are automatically the number one most important. So I think that's a pretty special way to think about it. All right, Cassandra, you're here this morning. So happy to have you as well. Okay, so right now in this session, number one is to me not allowing anyone to affect my true smile and my daily goal to fully love and serve others. I love it. I love it. I love it. Unaffected by garbage energy, I think is what we're saying there. That's awesome. That's awesome. And Margaret is here and she says, I know I deserve to be number one, and I'm working on automatically thinking that. Yeah, it's a hard thing to think about because, especially if you're a mom, you probably have I got to protect the kids, I got to do everything with them. And that is, we're moms, we take care of our babies. But how are we going to take care of our babies if we're not taking care of ourselves first, right? And that's the point of recognizing how important you are. And if you aren't able to take care of the people in your life or the things in your life, you're not able to help anybody. So if you aren't alive, you can't change anything in life. So in your life, you need to be number one. And that includes your health. That includes your thinking about how you can change the world, how important you are. All of those things are important. And we know this from a real simple thing, which is that put that oxygen mask on yourself first. Whenever we fly, now this is in case of an emergency, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to you in other situations. That we have to, in order for us to take care of the people around us, we have to make sure we have the oxygen to breathe so that we can take care of those around us. And that's why, we talk about self-care, but we don't necessarily put it into play. And yet we really need to understand that being number one matters. So being number one is an interesting topic right now. And when I saw the date and when I knew it was the first Monday of the month, and I thought, this is a good time to tell you guys this part of this crazy story. So many of you know that my husband's father passed this week, and he was my husband is his only child. Okay. And so it was very cute of his dad. He called him number one. That was his thing all the time. So whenever he called, he'd say, how are you doing, number one? And sure, it was a joke because he was the only son, but he was his number one son. And when I got the call from Chris that his dad had passed, I was at work and I immediately closed everything down, and it took me about a half an hour to get there. And by the time I got there, the coroner was already there. They had the police there too, just to make sure there was no foul play, I guess. And so Chris was in the hallway, and he met me in the hallway, and just broke down when he saw me, and I'm holding him, and almost immediately I felt this really strong thought about him being his dad's number one, and that Chris doesn't get to hear that anymore. And it broke my heart. And I was like, okay. And so I grappled with that for a few days, and I talked to God about it. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I want to help Chris. I know the pain he's in, and this was a beautiful thing that he got. And God just really put on my heart. He's like, Chris is your number one. He's your priority. I strongly profess that as a married couple, we are one together. And so making him one is also making me one, because if we have that strong marriage, Chris and I have parents that are married and parents that aren't married. So we got to see the single life, and the parents that are married have much better health. They've been together for so long. And that is one of those things that is that if you're with somebody, you have a longer lifespan. How crazy is that, right? So being number one matters. And now I am committed, and I am waking up every morning and making sure that I let my husband know that he's number one. I'm calling him number one every day as a way to fill him up, to fill a void that he has. And he's always been my number one, but I haven't made the point of making it a priority and letting him know how important he was, right? Like that was the key of what his dad did is he let Chris know every day. And so, who or what do you make number one in your life? Because it's a reflection on those priorities that you make, right? And so it's easy for us to make everything else more important and not to focus on the things that really matter to us. And I didn't want that to be a stopping point for anybody. I wanted to get you to a place where you were really thinking about what are my priorities? And sure, we might have work priorities and we might have personal life priorities, but we all have an overriding theme that if we capitalize on the energy of the things that really matter to us, we're going to have greater growth for sure. And I love this. I'm seeing this here, and this is such a truth. And Seneca, thank you for sharing this because this is an important point I also wanted to make. If you make your son number one to the point you can actually harm their growth. And that is so true. And I made this mistake. I focused all my energy as a mom to my child and my children. I had my three. And when in my first marriage, the marriage wasn't going well. So I totally just devoted everything went to the kids. And of course, they needed me. It felt good. We had a good relationship. I directed all my attention and energy towards them. And that did not help my marriage any. And things went south, and I was in that place. Now, I got divorced. And shortly after the separation and all those things happened, I did meet Chris, and I was in that new love gaga state. And God just really put it on my heart that this was more important. And it was hard. My son was still at home and he wanted my attention, and I was giving it to him, but in a healthy way. And now my son has this different viewpoint. He no longer, uh, like we've talked about this with other people, it relieved some pressure on him that he had to be everything for me. And Chris and I had this conversation just the other day. So all three of my kids, so Chris and I have 9 kids together, but all 3 of mine live out of the state. And I said to Chris, I said, you know how different it would be if we had not gotten married. I don't know as the kids would have felt like they could leave me because they would have needed to take care of me and wouldn't want me to be alone. And that would have been weird, right? Like I needed to grow up too, and they needed to grow up, and they didn't need to be caretaking me. So it was an interesting position and an interesting thought that we were having as we were talking about that. So glad that you're here today, for sure, for sure. Okay, we're going to keep going. I get lost in the comments as well, but I'm happy you guys are letting me know what you're thinking and that you're thinking about being number one and what's going on. We are going to be covering the priorities of life. We cover the 7 F's, and each month we've been taking a different one. And this month in the masterclass for April, we are going to be covering the F called field. And this is your work, okay, the thing you tend to do most in a day. And it might be a job, it might be your business, it might just be a passion or a hobby or a movement that you are just on fire for. And so I invite you to come to the masterclass. It is in the mornings, and we will be at 7:30 a.m. my time, and we'll do about a half an hour live in the community. And you're on like this. You can comment. We'll go through the whole material, and then if you sign up for VIP, we do a live Zoom in the evenings. So Wednesday and Thursday, there will be 2 question and answers. It's kind of like homework help and just a deeper dive. And then you'll have access to the weekend workshop. So I hope that you'll be interested. If you are, just go ahead and put #masterclass and I will get you the information. And then wanted to let you know that the April Field Fingo board. So it's like a version of bingo, but using the 7 Fs. And we're focusing this one on your passion. And so it'll be a bingo board and things that you can be working on. And so that will be available tomorrow. I'll post it in the group and have a little bit of information on it. All right. I'm going to check a few more comments in here. So happy you guys are interacting. And yes, Margaret's got the little thing. When I noticed when I switched it to bingo, I went, oh my goodness, because we concentrate on the 7 Fs of life. And I went, it's effing go. And it's true. We got to get working on the things that matter to us. And that's why my April or the start of the week is so important to me, because this first week of the month, it's all about setting those goals, getting yourself going for the month. What's important to you? What are your priorities? What are some goals you're going to set? In fact, I have a homework assignment for you guys. And let's see, there it is. The homework assignment today is to pick a dream you have. It can be in any area, but you might want to focus it on your business if you want, because that's what our focus is going to be this month. But set a goal that gets you closer to your dream and do something for it today. And the example I'm going to give you guys is a fun little thing that happened this week. And I don't know what it is, but I love tulips. I always have. And Sarah, one of our members, has been such a treat, because I told her that I liked tulips not too long ago. And almost every post she makes, she includes some tulips in there just for me. I know it's a treat for me. And I was working and I was thinking about tulips because it's that time of year, right? I saw some when I was driving that were really starting to bloom in the neighborhoods. And I was just like, oh, I love tulips so much. So I've always had a dream to like go to Holland or someplace where apparently the hills are just covered. They change the color of the hills because they're so beautiful. So I was online looking for where I could go in the United States. I knew I couldn't go to Holland this year, but I've heard that there are places, like for instance, we live in Oklahoma, but my husband's family is in Iowa, and our tulips bloom about a month before Iowa's tulips because the weather changed, right? So I was thinking, I'm going to find a place where I can go in Iowa or anywhere in the US. Like I said, 3 of our kids, we have a few others, but live out of the area. And maybe there were places that I could go. Like one of my daughters is in Washington State. And I was like, I could go out there and I could maybe see some tulip hills. So I'm looking, and I mentioned it to a friend at work that I was doing research on where to find tulips. And she said, well, you know, one of the guys who works there at our company has been helping a new company with their tulip place. She said, it's called OKC Tulips, and you could go and they have tulips available. So I went out to their Facebook page, and ironically, this was on a Thursday. The next day, they were closed over the weekend for Easter, but on that Friday, they were having a open. You could go and you could pick the tulips. So you could cut the tulips, and I think it was like 10 bulbs for $20. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this. And so I was going to do it on my lunch break. And my husband was like, I'll take you. And he is so much fun because he loves to take pictures of me. Ironically, I found this out when we first met the park near us during the tulip time. And we would walk through and he would take all these pictures. And I felt like a little girl, like a child love. Like I love to take pictures of my kids, right? Well, my husband just makes me feel so special because he takes tons of pictures. Like when we go to an event, he will take 100, 200 pictures of me. And it just with his phone. It's not like he's got a fancy camera or anything like that. So he went with me. We went, and there were maybe like 20 strips where they had the tulips, and they were nice, but it wasn't anything like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, right? It was nice. And so we picked some, and I got some to bring home, and they're on the table downstairs. We have our 10, and they're varieties I hadn't seen, and they're just so beautiful. So the live for today, the post, those tulips was me sitting on a bench by some that they had that you couldn't pick, just to get the depth in there, right? And so I had a great time. Then after doing that, so I went back to work, and you know how Facebook kind of like somehow knows everything you do. It knew that I went there, even though I hadn't said it, matched everything up. And it reminded me that there was a tulip festival in Oklahoma City going on. And so I told Chris, I said, I don't know how we're going to fit this in this weekend. But because we had Easter, we went to church at 5 p.m. We were serving all morning on Easter and then having the kids come over yesterday. I said, but could we go after church? Like there's still an hour before dark. And so in our church clothes, we went downtown. The festival was over, but of course the tulips were all there. So it was beautiful. The wind had stopped, which Oklahoma wind is kind of annoying. So the wind wasn't there. We had beautiful weather. And we walked through this place called Myriad Gardens, and the tulips were outstanding. Like what I had seen on Friday, this was on steroids. And it was like someone had made art out of the tulips. They had all these different colors interspersed and different varieties, things I had never seen before. And it was just all throughout the park. You just walked and got to see all these beautiful, beautiful tulips. So I made a post that I was in tulip heaven, and I was not kidding. And it just filled my heart up so much. And while we were there, my husband took a million pictures again, loved it. And even we were there when the sun set. And I am not kidding you guys, the dress I was wearing, the sunset matched it perfectly. Like the colors, it was like this amazing experience. So your homework is to pick a dream that you have and to set a goal to get closer to it today. If I hadn't been dreaming about my hills of tulips, I wouldn't have seen the opportunity to go do something local. A little thing. That little thing spurred something bigger that I wasn't expecting at all. And it filled my heart up so much. And I don't know, maybe I'll never get to go to Holland and see those beautiful tulips. But I was that much closer and it filled me up. And that's what I want for you guys. I just want you to take those dreams and break them down into something that you can, as Cassandra said here, cherish. And it's so true. It's so true. Yes, my soul is happy. And I just am so happy for you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Francione, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. All right. You guys are awesome. I hope you have a truly blessed week. And I will be thinking about you. And I would love to have you guys come and be a part of the masterclass this week. So again, put hashtag masterclass in if you are interested, and we'll make sure that we get you the information. It's starting on Wednesday this week. Until then, have a truly blessed week, and we'll see you guys soon.